our thought process and how we developed this and how it all fits into the entire LAMS picture. The PowerPoint, it's pretty much the same PowerPoint as the other ones, maybe a few modifications here and there with either one of the ones that Senior Chief presented. That's what we geared this around, and we just worked on designing a model that would fit within it that's easy to understand. One of the first things we came to factor when we drew up a rough draft of a model, we wanted to see where it fit in LAMS. And what we feel is the model that we created can actually fit in with our flow channel and enable others to act in the leadership challenge. We also feel it does represent with DISC. We can also tie it in with the definition of leadership with our arrow and on the way we format it out. And it works with listening. It hits all of our 5 practices in the way it gets put on there. And we want to tie more into motivation. That's why when you'll see we use words like motivation on our graph. And of course, decision-making methodologies are part of it. Other factors we looked at, we're going to basically work through with PowerPoints that Senior Chief created on that. And overall, then we hit on how we're going to assess the member. You know, do we want to do a meter? We actually went back and forth on that. How do we do that? We came up with our gauge. And we also went in, okay, what should the leader do? You know, what are some of the things the leader should do? The research that we came across. You know, when we want to address where this research comes from, I mean, it's all covered. We're all basing this off the same stuff. The Senior Chief went back and re-looked for us on it. And the TPOs and EOs, this model will cover all of those, all of the EOs. All right. Now, before we started off, one of the things we wanted to do as a group is we tried to feel, we wanted to use what worked best out of the 2 groups, because we had 2 different models that got shot out there, and a lot of passionate words got thrown back and forth during those discussions, which we had half the group wanted one, half wanted the other, and that just shows how opposed they were on it. And we decided what worked great for what we saw on the other models and what worked great on what we saw on one we created, and we tried to make it all come together. And what we came up with is we liked the gauge with our ability, but instead of willingness, we wanted to use motivation. Because how motivated is somebody to do the job? And when we talk about committed and compliant, we're talking about motivation, and we're measuring motivation. So that kind of takes that word, willingness out of there. And so we wanted to do it on a gauge from low to high. And we're bouncing around. We sort of agreed to calling it a member gauge, but we're open to changing what it's called. And of course, Misha couldn't be right if I didn't say you're a line here. You know, it talks about how do we gauge our members?
By engaging them.
By engaging them.
Nice. Sometimes you have to tap on the gauge to make it work.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. All right, but we felt that this kind of gives people like a simplistic, because almost anybody in the Coast Guard is exposed to some sort of gauge that they look at some point in their career, so it kind of gives a quick visual. You can see it, go in any direction, and it could be any bit of a range in there. But then comes our model. And I actually have our working model on below, covered in Post-it notes, and then what our final product was, thanks to our artist.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And what we came up with is actually theirs isn't hanging up for comparison. We have our gauges on the side for low to high, but we look at their ability, their motivation, and just kind of line them up. Now we kind of did a linear fashion from teach or inspire a member to mentoring and then trusting and admiring or encouraging. That kind of fits with the encourage the heart part of our leadership challenge. I don't know why I just had a brain lapse on that word. But we created it in, let me show you down here a little bit more. We kind of did it in this linear fashion, so it doesn't say that if this, then, are you going to, all right. We're not saying if this, then that, these 2 things, then that. It's a giant area that we overlook. And if you notice, mentoring is the biggest area, because that's where we do most of our leadership. When somebody doesn't know how to do the job and doesn't want to do the job, or is unmotivated and unable, you know, it's easy. I show you how to do it and I convince you you want to do it. That's the easy part. We also put here with trusting and admire. If somebody can do the job and they want to do the job, here, go do the job. That's the easy part. We want to focus more on the mentoring, and that's the bigger part of what leadership is. And we actually kept bouncing around what is the best word to use here. You know, mentoring, coaching, what have you. And we did come up with mentor because that's what we're doing. We're showing them how to do that job. We want them to do it that way, and we're guiding them towards it. Now, when we mentor, though, if you notice, we have member-focused and task-focused. If the person's motivation is on the higher side of the chart, but their ability is still on the lower side, well, we don't need to focus on the member. We need to focus on the task. We still give the member some support. We're still mentoring, but we're going to be mentoring in a task-oriented way. If the member has a higher ability to do it, but their willingness or their motivation is low, then we need to shift our focus on making, on the member themselves, and that's where the member focus comes in. And all this time, we're trying to take them down this path to get them to that point where we can trust them to say, here's the job, go do. And that's the journey. So that's where we get with the, the flow channel, with the leadership challenge. I don't know, have you been taught the leadership challenge yet, since it's been so long since you've had it?
I have been taught, but I'm not too.
In enabling others to act, we want to build. You gotta find a spot to stick it on there. All right, to help them build more competencies and stuff, we want to challenge them and provide them challenging work, but not too challenging because we can go outside the channel. So we want to kind of guide them right down that channel and into it. All right, and of course with our member assessment, we are adopting Zach's flow chart for this that he created for the Strat Lead. We're basically asking, have you done this before? If yes, how did it go last time? And how do you feel about doing the task? That way we know if they can and want to do it. And then of course, if no, we still ask them, how do you feel about doing it? And then, do you have any questions? And that whole time we're assessing their motivational level. And that's how we tie it all back in together with previous blocks. And we're using terms that we use throughout LAMS to help reinforce those terms. That's why we talk about inspiring, teaching, mentoring, admiring, trusting. These are all terms that we're throwing all throughout TLC and motivation, and it helps reinforce those terms. And Pete, would you like to give some more input before I wrap this up?
Yes, just real, because we're talking about the leadership challenge, and a part of our overlays, the member focus is a part of encouraging the heart, and the task focus is a part of enabling others to act. So that way it's kind of, we can use some of that same verbiage from the leadership challenge and the commitments within the practices to better hone in on when you are tasking, this is where those 5 exemplary practices come into play.
And the reason why we threw, just to answer your question earlier about why we need the gauges and the chart, because it's on there, it's kind of taking the students down a path. Before we throw the chart at them, we want to know, hey, let's get to know our people, let's have that relationship with them, and let's see, do they want to do the job and can they do the job? And here's a way to do that. Now, and then when we get to this, now let's overlay that onto this chart. That's why we do that, those like step by step. We don't want to throw it all at them at once and then try to explain the chart to them.
And then I also like, we try to have that arrow and that path towards trust and admire, which fits with the Coast Guard's definition of leadership.
I do want to draw the arrow on here really quick, but I'm not going to because this is a beautiful graphic.
And you as goal, and as a leader, our end goal is getting our members up to that high
Yes.
ability, high motivation level. So it really kind of matches and fits in well.
A second, let me wrap this up and then I'll let the panel ask their questions, then we'll hit it from there. If you look here with our graphics and course book, basically we want to use that PowerPoint that Senior Chief created and kind of fine tune those PowerPoints and get up there. It should work just fine. It's all a lot of the basic stuff. With our course books, we basically want to have a little flow chart of why we need to do this for the members, the member gauge, our model, And of course, the teaching, mentoring, trusting, how do you do that? You know, like, basically what is teaching? What are leader actions during that? What is mentoring and what is trusting? What are the leader's actions? And of course, we want to throw in the tasking factors, you know, motivation and ability. And of course, takeaways. You know, just some extra stuff on there, pages for notes for the student book. Now I'll open it up for questions. I know that was well under 15 minutes, but I like to get her done.
All right, focus on the panel now, great.
See?
All right, so I don't really have anything that I don't like or have much comments, but I can tell you what I do like about it. I heard everybody talking about the wording. After hearing the wording, I do agree. Motivation sounds a lot better than I forget what the other word. Willingness. Or,
Yeah,
Willingness.
I like the fact that tasking is in there. Like the task be overwhelming for this member. And it ties better, I feel, with the member assessment.
Yeah. I like it. To me, it's much more intuitive to follow. It's a cleaner visual model. And I do really like the tie back to TLC because that's become kind of the foundation cornerstone of what the Coast Guard's going for. Yeah, I like it. I get the gauges and stuff, and I was talking to Sarah about ALP needing to flex back and forth.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably, once you explain it, I think it's probably intuitive for ALP up to the most senior person. And then the only I like the flow chart. I like just seeing that. The one recommendation made to change is say, instead of do you have any questions, is what questions do you have?
Agreed. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead and stick it right on there. I've been meaning to change that for a while.
Yeah, but I like, to
Now
me
you have the
it's-
motivation to
Yes.
do it.
To me, it complements really well. And like I look at it and it doesn't overwhelm me visually, so.
And that was our key thing. We wanted something that where anybody could pick that up and go, oh, I do this.
And it looks like a trident too, I'm just saying.
The leadership
You
triangle.
had me right up until there.
Well, I took it off, but we did have the pineapple in the middle for
Gotta be there on my shirt.
because we wanted to pick a word that Gunnar really likes, and he really loves the word mentor. And so we picked that word.
Yeah, and I
And
like,
it is a great word.
yeah, I think the words really are approachable to people. Like it seems like, oh yeah, I can mentor people. That's easy.
Yeah.
And doing that, you are doing, supporting and coaching and all that, but mentor, I think is a little bit more
Yes.
intuitive.
Well, as Charlie pointed out, just we're going back and forth between coach and mentor. And mentor, we want them to get to a specific spot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we mentor. Coaching, we want to come to their own conclusion.
And that's tough.
So that's why we went with mentor. I think I just like blew Charlie's mind that I retained something that he said yes.
First time for everything.
You made it. That's all I have.
Yes.
Yeah, come in.
Does anybody
Yeah, I
else?
think that
I don't think you can set that.
only having one set of axes labeled makes this more simple than the other one, even though it doesn't have the blocks, and it forces people to kind of think more once they're inside, but only having the one set of labels on the edge makes it a little bit easier to understand. And it does kind of imply that if you have someone that is in the red or in the amber and you're not in the upper right hand corner, not only does it tell you what to do now, but it kind of tells you, hey, there's the next task, hopefully they're a little bit further up and to the right. And I like how you mentioned the encourage the heart and enable others to act rather than member focus and task focus. I almost wonder if you should put those words on there instead of member focus, task focus.
Kind of
That-
put on here, encouraging the heart.
Yeah, just encourage, it's
Okay.
not, because
And down here,
encouraging,
enable them to
enabling,
act.
something like that, because I, member focus and task focus was the one aspect of this that was the least intuitive to me.
Yeah, I like that idea too. All right, anybody else? I guess, can we open it to everyone now, Charlie?
So,
Like,
that's a great question. So, using encourage the heart and enable others to act would be copyrighted. We have a license to use them though. We just want to make sure that, and it may even have to be in fine print on the bottom of the charts. I don't know, encourage the heart, enable others to act, copyright, who's and poster. We just make sure the students know that, hey, these are the terms from Leadership Challenge. We're not owning those in the leader action matrix system, which,
Putting the lambs back in lambs. So.
yeah.
well, oh, and by the way,
Just now got it, right?
No, I think,
by the way,
I
this is
saw that.
called the LAMS model, the Leader Action Matrix System.
Yeah, I joked
We actually
yesterday.
came to that organically and didn't
Alright.
even, it didn't even
It
click.
just
Wait,
sounds
Jason,
like
did-
it needs a number, like the Leader Action Matrix System 2500.
But yeah, I do appreciate that feedback on adding those. Just I think maybe if we put them like in parentheses around them, because because encouraging the heart is just saying I only want to tell you awesome things and reward you, but we
Right.
still want to focus on a little bit of the tasking also. Was probably the term,
Yeah.
but I do think
Less
we
than
can
plan.
tie them in perfectly on there with it though.
Yeah, less than planned.
2 more minutes for the panel if they have any more questions.
All right, panel.
I mean, I'm nitpicking here too, but vision could be part of the motivation too. Like if they don't have the motivation to do it, knowing why, how it contributes, could be important as well.
And that's why the inspire, the teach and inspire shared
Yeah.
vision.
Yeah, and that's why we said it ties into all
Yeah.
the 5 practices. All right.
Chief, I really like the wording, like the member focus and the task focus, and I feel like I can grasp it more on the thing, so.
I guess, and it may be the trident piece, because I know what we're ultimately getting to. Do we want it to be more like a flow, realizing,
Just one big arrow coming up.
or just realize it can, people, because it almost, face value says, okay, once you get them up here, they may just stay up there, which we all know that's not really the case. And maybe that's something to emphasize